Thank you very much, Reverend Adon. Okay, I'm still checking my screen here, Madam Chair. I think we've exhausted the questions for you, but again, thank you so much for advocating for people that need to have a good advocate, and all the work that you do in that particular part of what we're doing here. I think that with no further questions for that, then that should end the hearing on these two bills right now.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're quite welcome. I'm going to read into the record one more bill before we go to the telephones with our guests awaiting there. The bill that I will read into the record is Bill 5453 by Vice Chair Slater, and that bill makes various changes to provisions related to medical marijuana, including changing the number of allowable compassion center licenses and reducing the license fee from $500,000 to $5,000 and eliminating the plant tagging system. So that, if anyone has any questions about that particular bill, as I say, the sponsor is not here right now, but you can always contact him for that. So that would end the hearing on Bill 5453. Now what we're going to do is go to the telephones. And again, this is not the easiest thing in the world to do, but we're going to ask our guests to be patient, and we'll try to get to everyone. You'll have a couple of minutes to tell us who you are, which bills you support, which bills you do not. Some of you are testifying on more than one bill, and we understand that. So you can have a little bit more time, but please gauge yourself. If you have 2 or 3 bills, don't spend all of your time on just one bill, because you won't have time on the next 2 or 3. You will hear a little noise in your phone, and that will just simply be an indication that you've got about 15 or 20 more seconds to go. So we're doing all of this to make sure you are heard, but to keep some order so we can get through everyone. So I think we're ready for the first telephone caller. Yes, is this Armand?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. This is Chairman Abner, House Finance. Just please give us your name, which bill or bills you're testifying on. You have a couple of minutes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. I am Armand Housee, President of the Rhode Island Cultivator Industry Association and owner of Evergreen Gardens, LLC, a licensed medical cannabis cultivator. I want to thank you, Chairman Abney, members of the committee, for holding this hearing. As I testified previously before the Senate, marijuana legalization is long overdue. Now is the time to correct the wrongs of past prohibition and the one time to get adult use cannabis right. After reading the comments of Speaker Shikachi in today's Providence Journal, it appears he wants answers to the same questions that we, the state licensed cultivators, also want answers. How do we do it, and who is selling it? What's the role of the dispensaries? What's the role of the cultivators? What's the role of the home growers? Where does the state fit in? Are we regulating enough? These are all great questions that need to be answered, and we will assist you in finding all the answers. The cultivators have endured over 4 years of changing laws and regulations and are well positioned to inform the upcoming discussion. The Rhode Island Cultivator Industry Association believes a stepped approach to adult use sales is the prudent one. We propose legalizing adult use retail sales beginning on October 1, 2021, using the existing and future compassion centers for the first year of retail sales, an exclusive arrangement which would sunset on October 1st, 2022. Rhode Island has the infrastructure in place to achieve this goal. This would allow legal retail sales to commence this year and give the General Assembly time to establish the future retail marketplace based on observations from the first year of retail sales. The 1-year period also allows for review of best practices regarding taxation, potency limits, social equity, social justice, and youth prevention. What's the role of the cultivators? Cultivators who currently produce a majority of the medical products are ready to satisfy the demand of the recreational market as well. The state has already licensed enough canopy to supply both the medical and recreational markets, and therefore we oppose any additional cultivation licenses. Should Should a market study determine that more production space is needed, only the existing cultivators should be allowed to expand. Soon there will be 6 new compassion centers who will initially only be able to grow if they absorb an existing cultivator license. This restriction on the ability of new centers to cultivate was an admission that the state had already licensed enough cultivators to satisfy medical demand. Regarding home grows, this is the type of issue that can be addressed more thoughtfully during the next legislative session with input from proponents, municipal officials, law enforcement, and health professionals. Regarding testing, the state continues to advance the different components of testings and recently required microbial testing.
About another 30 seconds, Ahmad.
Yeah, okay. In the process of legalization, you will be preserving dozens of Rhode Island small businesses, the cultivators, saving hundreds of Rhode Island jobs and protecting millions of dollars in Rhode Island investment. We thank the House Finance Committee for bringing this serious discussion with the intent of passing some form of legislation. We also thank the Office of Cannabis Regulation for helping cultivators navigate these challenging times in the industry. We stand with the General Assembly and the Governor to find the best solutions for all the long-standing problems that cannabis prohibition has brought about and to ensure that the pivot to adult-use cannabis is done safely and smartly. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ahmad, and take care of yourself, young man.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is this Kurt?
It is.
Kurt, this is Chairman Abner. You're on House Finance. Are you testifying on more than one bill?
I am. I've signed up to testify on 5452, 5453, and 5930.
Okay, thank you. As I said before, because you're testifying on more than one bill, we'll give you a few seconds more than that, but please gauge yourself so you can get all 4 of your bills in. It's important to us. So you have the floor,
I
sir.
totally understand. Thank you so much. Respected senators, representatives, members of the House Committee on Finance, I really appreciate your service. Thank you for your time. My name is Kurt Carlson. I live in Burrillville, Rhode Island. I've lived in Rhode Island for 47 out of 52 years. In an attempt to respect your time, I'm going to be efficient here and go through the process of telling you a story, and then if you have some questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. In 1993, just after graduating from URI with a degree in wildlife biology and management, I was ready to engage in possibly a federal job or possibly a state job, which was my goal, working for DEM, who I know you've been talking about this evening. There were 36 people arrested in this pre-dawn drug raid in 6 area communities of South County, Rhode Island. I was one of those people. I had asked my cousin and her fiance to assist me. I was using marijuana to deal with anxiety. I was failing at URI and not able to stay in classes, and marijuana was offered to me by a person I was living with, and it changed my ability to be in class and changed my ability to move forward under academic probation and then graduate with almost a 2.7 GPA, which some of you may know is not easy to bring up a low GPA to a higher GPA. I would sell marijuana to basically be able to smoke marijuana and sell off the amount that I needed to not pay for mine. Of the 36 people that were arrested in these pre-dawn strikes, there was one person with 11 pounds. I was arrested for 7 grams. It's a quarter ounce of marijuana. And I sold that for $50. This is the same amount that is being sold in Massachusetts on a daily basis between $80 and $100, obviously with no criminal prosecution to those people selling it. I was picked up, or tried to be picked up, early in the morning, and I was at work, so they had to come to work to get me. That was a group home. I had to call people in to cover for me. There were 5 adult males. It was a high-level group home, and there were people there that could get hurt if I had to leave. The police sort of understood that, but they insisted that I go. Through the process, I ended up with 2 felony convictions. I pled nolo contendere, but that meant that the convictions sort of stood, but I didn't have to write, according to my lawyer, that I was convicted of anything on any applications. The situation that occurred or resulted from that was that I was Obviously, if I violated any further criminal law in the state of Rhode Island, I would have the full brunt of that come to bear. 3 strikes, you're out was the program at the time. That was a lifetime in prison for 3 felonies. I couldn't leave the state of Rhode Island without permission from the court. I had to agree to waive extradition. I had to report to a probation officer. I had to keep my probation officer informed of my whereabouts at all times. I had to do 150 hours of community service, and I had to make every effort to stay steadily employed. The person who was brought in by the state of Rhode Island as a confidential informant, probably one of the 2, just described me as I had a long hair and was in a band. I don't know why that was important. As far as these things go, I want to just let you know, again, 7 grams was the arrest fair. It was against the law. I made a mistake. I totally understand that. Were there lasting effects? I couldn't put a job. This is 93. I don't have a resume piece until 1997. I tried many times to go for jobs in the Park Service. I was refused. I tried for many times to take jobs or apply for jobs. I don't know if background checks resulted in me not getting them. I had to work all kinds of strange jobs leading up to the point where I could finally look for expungement after 5 years. At that point in time, I actually had to wait 10 more years to get that process taken care of. During that time, I went back to work in human services. I did the best after that to expunge my record. Got a master's degree. I have a license from the Department of Health in Rhode Island. Without the expungement, that would not have happened. I would not have been able to get loans. I would not have been able to go back to school.
Another
that
30
made
seconds,
a huge
Kurt.
difference. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I think it's fair that the state is looking at this in the recreational purposes and legalizing it. I think that's an amazing process, and I applaud it for people who need it and want to use it in that way. I think convictions should be expunged. They should be gotten rid of as long as there's no violent association. I don't believe that people should be tied to drug tests if this is going to be legal for work or for keeping their children or any of these things. And I believe that people who've been affected by the war on drugs should be part of the process. I'm happy to help plan. I believe I have a skill set to do so. I also would say that it's time to make the right choice here in Rhode Island and fix some of the mistakes that were made. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And again, I'm happy to answer any of the questions you may have in support of the bills that I signed up to talk about.
Thank you very much, Kurt. We appreciate your heartfelt testimony, and stay safe, young man. Please.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have Ellen on the line?
Hi, is it time for me to talk?
Yes, it is. This is the Chairman Abner on House Finance. It is time for you to talk.
Okay.
Are you,
Okay.
you speaking on 2 bills?
Yes, I am. If you
Okay,
don't
great.
mind.
You've got usually it's a couple of minutes, but we'll give you an extra minute because you got 2 bills.
Okay.
Please proceed.
Sorry about that. I miss seeing you all in person, but this is Ellen Lennox Smith. I've been a medical patient in the state since 2007, and I first would like to just make a couple of comments about H6122, Article 11 specifically. One of my concerns is it calls that there will be no smoking or vaporizing in public housing unless somebody gets permission. And my concern about this is that I have sarcoidosis in my chest, so smoking anything would be fatal. However, my pulmonologist is fine with vaporizing. I don't particularly use that, but I am allowed to use it. And just so you understand, when somebody vaporizes, it's only the vapor coming out. It's nothing at all like having smoke come out. So I understand the concern of being in, let's say, public housing, apartments, and smelling smoke. But I think it really limits people in that circumstance to be able to possibly medicate the one way that works for them. So I do have concerns with that. And the other concern within Article 11 is the idea that an employer, if a person comes in appearing to be impaired, but then they have a right to give them a urine test, and if it's positive, they can terminate them. Number one, I don't understand why that first wouldn't be a warning to the person, try to work with us and see if they can, improve what's going wrong. And second of all, a urine test could come out positive and not actually be what that person was using at that moment. I could have a urine test and maybe had marijuana use 3 weeks ago, and it could still come back positive. So I really have a problem with that, and I'm very, very sorry, very concerned that this could end up in some lawsuits if we're not careful. Going on to H5453, I'm absolutely thrilled that this has come up into a hearing today. I'm very concerned for patients in this state. I hope you're aware of the fact the number of people that are no longer registering, that are going across the border, going to Massachusetts, or maybe even growing illegally because they cannot afford what's going on. Our medical program was meant to be compassionate, still remains that we get absolutely no compensation. So any taxes or any addition we put onto these poor people, they're not affording it, and it's really become a problem. Number one, I'd like to see establishing a hardship designation for low-income people. And what I mean by that is that a person applies at the beginning, and at that application process, to prevent any stigma, any embarrassment, it's determined then that that person has a problem financially, and you could actually just mark it on their medical card, so wherever they go into a center, they don't have to have that embarrassing discussion. It would just be right there to show that they were one of those people marked that needs help financially. The plant tags are a serious problem. I understand you want to have a record of who's growing. I have no problem with that, but we could still go through the application process to report that we're growing, but let's get rid of those fees. Once again, it's just pushing people out of honesty, and they're not reporting it. Clearly, having two rare conditions, to wait for the condition to be listed is a serious problem. I love the idea of just going back to a doctor-patient relationship and nurse practitioner, letting them have the discretion to decide if a patient should be considering the use of cannabis. I'd like to see the Compassion Center cost yearly is $500,000. I would like to see that get back. All these costs are just going onto the patient eventually.
30 seconds, Ellen.
I'm sorry? That's my time.
Yeah,
so sorry.
that's the little timer.
I thought it was your phone ringing. Excuse me. It's so hard to say.
No, that's okay.
I'll just say one last thing, that I hope we seriously do automatic expungement for people who have made a mistake at a young age and have been punished for the rest of their life for this. We really need to be the model at this state for the rest of the country. So thank you for listening to me. Sorry to go over, and thank you for taking this on. Okay?
That's okay. It happened to us all. Stay safe. Thank you.
Okay, you too.
Mm-hmm. Hello, I assume this is Jared.
Yes.
This is Chairman Edmund. You're on House Finance, sir. You've got 3 bills you're testifying on?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. We'll give you a few more minutes other than the normal 2 minutes because you got these 3 bills. So you're on, sir.
I really appreciate Chairman Abney, and thank you to the members of the House Finance Committee. My name is Jared Moffitt. I work for the Marijuana Policy Project, and I've been involved in efforts to get a cannabis legalization bill passed in Rhode Island for a number of years, so I know many of you. And I'm going to keep my comments pretty brief. I know that there are a lot of other speakers who want to talk, so I just want to underscore, really what the motivation and benefits behind cannabis legalization are, because I think that, the way lawmakers should look at this is, although there are some details to figure out, and I'm confident that with the expertise from DBR and from the Senate leadership and from Representative Slater, who has been working on this issue for many years, I do feel confident that it's possible to put forward a good policy that will benefit many Rhode Islanders, and it's an opportunity to create a lot of social and economic benefits for the state. And there's a reason that we've now seen 18 other states pass similar laws. And I'd just like to mention that 7 of those states have passed laws within the last 6 months. So this is clearly something that the public and Americans are realizing, that cannabis criminalization has been a bad policy, and that a new approach of regulating and taxing is better for, again, the economy, the public health and safety. And I just want to mention a few statistics that may be of interest to the members of the committee, and these are also in my written comments cited. But in total, since 2014, cannabis legalization states have generated more than $7 billion in total in new tax revenue, and that's just in 7 years, and that includes states that have only recently passed legalization. There's a report out from this year that shows that the cannabis industry currently provides 321,000 full-time jobs in the United States, and it's the fastest growing job sector in the country. And I think that Rhode Island, again, should see this as an opportunity to create jobs, especially at a time when, COVID, the pandemic, has caused economic hardship for so many. This potentially could create many, many jobs in Rhode Island, and it's not just the retail opportunities, the cultivation aspects. It's also many ancillary businesses. These businesses rely on security firms, laboratories, attorneys, accountants, construction workers, and many other types of businesses. And so this is, again, a real opening for Rhode Island to boost its economy and produce revenue as well, but also to provide a dignified life and way for people and entrepreneurs to benefit the members of their community and provide jobs to many others. What we also see is that arrests for cannabis are plummeting in states that obviously have legalized, and what we're seeing is now that's affecting the overall rates of arrests in the country. We've seen about 100,000 fewer cannabis arrests in recent years as a result of these laws. And I just want to make the point that Mr. Carlson raised. When he talks about how from 4 years his resume was blank because of a cannabis arrest, and because that made that was a stain on his record. That's loss of income for the state as well, right? These are folks who are not paying income tax. These are folks who have been kept out of the job market. So the opportunity to provide relief to folks who have prior criminal records is a huge opportunity as well. I'll conclude my remarks there just because, again, I know there's a lot more to say, but I provided in my written comments detailed feedback on Article 11, and also the reason that we're supporting the other bills that have been heard today to promote equity and reform the medical cannabis program. I'd be happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No questions. I thank you for your testimony, my friend. Have a good night. Hello, you are on live with House Finance. If you could just introduce yourself and then talk about the bill that you're here to testify on for a couple of minutes, go right ahead.
Hi, my name is Tal Begin, and I'm calling to testify on Article 11 of the state budget. And while it is great news that the state of Rhode Island is finally ending the prohibition of marijuana, we must right the wrongs that our state has done for the past decades of prohibition. And this means full economic and racial justice must be baked into any state plan to legalize marijuana. This means absolutely no criminalization of possession or other charges associated with marijuana for anyone. This means that parents can't lose access to their kids, and students won't lose time at school related to marijuana. This means that records will be automatically expunged without forcing people through bureaucracy. This means that communities targeted by the drug war will see the economic benefits of legalization, and this means that workers should have a share of the market devoted to worker-owned cooperatives and union protections for jobs related to the industry. Without these measures, legalization is no more than a giveaway to multi-billion-dollar out-of-state corporations that aim to take over the market in Rhode Island, and it's a slap in the face to Rhode Islanders who have been targeted by prohibition. So while I'm glad that we're finally having the conversation about legalizing marijuana in Rhode Island, I'm worried that without these measures, we're simply giving millions of dollars a year to out-of-state corporations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No questions? Have a good night. All right, next up. Hello, you are on live with House Finance. If you could just introduce yourself and tell us what bill you're here to testify on and talk about it for a couple of minutes. Go right ahead.
Sure. Thank you very much, Vice Chair. This is Stephen Brown from the ACLU of Rhode Island. We have submitted very detailed written testimony both on Article 11 and the three other bills promoting social equity. I encourage the committee members to review it. I just want to briefly address two aspects of Article 11 that we want to especially bring to the committee's attention. We appreciate the governor's press for passing legislation to legalize marijuana and join the many other states that have done it. But two issues in particular that I want to talk about are first, the employment section you heard from a previous speaker. We too have concerns about the way that the way the article is drafted and the impact it would have on individuals who are lawfully making use of using the marijuana. Employers certainly have every right to ensure that their employees are not impaired on the job, whether it's from cannabis, from alcohol, or prescription drugs. But it really makes no sense to legalize cannabis and then punish users when their use has no effect on their work. Now, as you heard, the article would allow termination of an employee merely for having a positive result for active THC in their system, which can be from cannabis that was smoked weeks prior. There's also nothing that prevents an employer from barring anybody who has marijuana in the system when they apply for a job. Again, even though there's no evidence that it would affect their work. So we really urge that language be amended to better protect individuals and make sure that people who are using marijuana lawfully aren't punished by not being able to get a job anywhere. Secondly, very quickly, I also want to address some sections in the article dealing with criminal record checks for individuals participating in medical marijuana centers. We're concerned. I think the goal is to provide protection to these individuals and not have criminal record checks be used to discriminate against them. But the way it's worded, we think it actually would have the opposite effect. It's obviously very important in terms of social justice not to further punish people who were punished in the past for using this drug that is now going to be legalized. And so we hope that the committee will look very carefully at that language, look at our testimony, and correct it so that people are not discriminated against based on past criminal records. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Steve. We appreciate that. I don't see any hands for questions at this point, so thanks for your testimony, sir.
Thank you.
Taxa Rich did really well.
Okay, thank you. Is this Mia?
Yes.
Okay.
Mia, yes.
Okay, great. I got it right. I can't believe it. Anyway, you're on House Finance, and you're testifying on one bill. So just, tell us your name, which bill you're testifying for against, and speak for a couple of minutes, please.
Thank you. My name is Mia Inoue. I am testifying on the governor's marijuana legalization bill, or I think it's Article 11. And I wanted to, testify against the bill, but in favor of marijuana legalization. So I think that it's really important that we legalize recreational marijuana and that we do it this session. Obviously, there's a lot of revenue to be had in that industry that could help fund public services in the state. And also, the war on drugs has been very long and painful and has ruined a lot of people's lives, and there's no reason to be, continuing to incarcerate people and charge people with marijuana related offenses when, it's a widely used recreational drug. I, however, think that especially in 2021, after we had the biggest social movement in the history of the United States last summer around racial injustice, if we're going to talk about legalizing marijuana, racial justice really has to be at the heart of that. And we've seen from all of the other states that have legalized marijuana so far, maybe with the exception of New York, where it's kind of too early to see, that what's happened is basically just that people who used to sell marijuana no longer do, and that giant corporations take over the market pretty quickly. And so I think that it's really important that the bill have a very robust social equity clause that carves out a certain number of contracts for people who've been directly affected by the war on drugs, and that prioritizes worker-owned cooperatives so that people can not just have jobs, but also that they can own their businesses and build wealth and assets, and that money can stay in communities that have been over-policed. And the other thing I just wanted to say quickly is that I think it's crucial that the bill automatically expunge the criminal records for people who've had any kind of nonviolent marijuana related charge, because it's simply, unfair that people should continue to be barred from employment and have all of these other consequences in their lives for something that is now legal. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mia, for your testimony. We appreciate it. Okay, do we have Raquel?
Yes, sir.
Raquel, this is Chairman Abner on House Finance. I see you're testifying on the bill. Please just introduce yourself, the bill that you're for or against, and speak for a couple of moments, please.
Absolutely. Okay. Hi, my name is Raquel Baker. I'm a native Rhode Islander. Thank you for your time today. I'm so appreciative. I would like to speak on Article 11, Bill 5451, for directing medical cannabis revenue to distressed communities, 5452 for social equality licensing and expungement and disparity study, 5453 medical cannabis reform bill. I'm speaking to express my support for cannabis legalization, but also how the current proposal can be improved. As a patient, I have been stigmatized, criminalized, and traumatized by the state agencies. I was stigmatized and treated differently because of my medical marijuana and was forced to supervise visits with my son through a new DCYF worker after I had just gained unsupervised visits through the Boys Town Visitation Program. As a medical patient, I have also been criminalized. I was charged with a felony for having possession of my medicine that I purchased with my card at the Slater Center. A felony charge that still sits on my record that I can't expunge. As a patient that has been criminalized, the burden should not be on me, but on the state to expunge it. Enough is enough. I'm asking this committee to repair the harm that has been done to me and a lot of other people, to stop stigmatizing, criminalizing, and traumatizing parents and mothers just like myself. I never want someone to go through what I had to go through. It was awful. Any legalization bill needs to repair the harm to parents, especially the harm caused by the criminalization of cannabis that has traumatized many parents, children, and whole families. The bill needs to include automatic expungement to further repair the harm to families. Oh, I think I just read that. Particularly the criminalization that has created boundaries for housing and jobs, basic needs that we need to live. Enough is enough. We can do better. This is our opportunity to repair the harm that's been caused and stop future harm. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to express myself to you guys. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Raquel. Stay safe, please. Okay, next caller. Sherry?
Yeah.
This is Chairman Abner. You are now on House Finance. Please just give us your name, which bill you're testifying for or against. You have a couple of minutes to do so, please.
Thank you so much. My name is Cherie Cruz. I'm a native Rhode Islander, and I want to thank you all for your time and service. I'm speaking today to express my support for cannabis legalization in our state, but the need for improvements to social equity and opportunities to improve the economic health and well-being of our state. And the current proposals before us today in Article 11, 5451, 5452, and 5453. I myself have been negatively impacted by the war on drugs. My family has spent decades needing to rely on public assistance due to the collateral consequences of the criminalization of cannabis. These long-term negative impacts, which include barriers to employment housing, have been felt by thousands of other Rhode Islanders as a result of and have been negatively impacted overall economic health and well-being of our state.
Through thoughtful, equitable public policies, we can ensure that the economic benefits created by legalization are felt by all Rhode Islanders, particularly for those who've been harmed by the criminalization of cannabis. I'll speak to several areas of this legislation that must be strengthened to ensure that the past and future harms of criminalization of cannabis endured by Rhode Islanders are repaired and that can result in the improvement of the overall economic health and well-being of our state. We must remove the burden of expungement from those with limited resources. Any legislation needs to go further than waiving a fee. Expungement is a strenuous and re-traumatizing process. Communities have already suffered from harsh criminalization and penalties and cannot afford to be punished any further. The state legislature, with the stroke of a pen, has the opportunity now to demonstrate its care for the people of Rhode Island and lift that burden and provide automatic expungement. Based on my own experience facing negative collateral consequences, an experience I know I share with thousands of my fellow Rhode Islanders, I see cannabis legalization as a unique opportunity to repair the harm of past prohibitions. If we create tangible pathways to employment and ownership in the legal cannabis industry for those who paid the ultimate price for past cannabis-related actions, such as incarceration, fines, and decades of unemployment, we will be taking active leaps, not steps, toward repairing that harm. Again, this is particularly important now that we're proposing the Rhode Islanders can now benefit and prosper from acts that have produced negative, life-altering consequences for Rhode Islanders. Negative consequences and state punishment that have hindered our state. We need to provide support and increase opportunities for individuals who have been negatively impacted by leveling the playing field. We can do this because this will positively impact Rhode Islanders who, as a result of the war on drugs, have faced major barriers to employment and work towards lowering unemployment rates in our state as a whole. We must not create another Rhode Island brain drain in this area too. We have seen it in technology and other areas when competing in other states. These Rhode Islanders have knowledge and skills that now can be utilized not only to propel them out of poverty, but give our state a leading edge in the industry. Skills, talents, and expertise that should not be wasted. This is another important step to repair the harm. I'll just say in closing that this legislation needs to be considered as a jobs bill and all that is necessary to reduce the barriers to get people to work, particularly people who face decades of employment barriers.
Sherry,
thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it. Okay, next caller. Hi, is this Sammy? Sammy?
Yeah, sorry, I had to unmute myself. I'm here.
That's okay. You're on House Finance, sir. Just state your name, the bill that you're speaking on, or article, and speak for about a couple of minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, hi, my name is Sam Yamke. I'm a member of the Providence community. I believe this is for Article 11, the specific article in reference to legalizing marijuana legislation. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's the correct number, but I've been testifying a lot, so I'm not sure if I have that down. But what I wanted to say to the committee in regards to this legislation is that any legalization measure without a part including full expungement of the criminal records, automatic expungement of the criminal records of people who have been imprisoned on marijuana-related offenses, I think is wholly lacking, but also just really ignorant of history. And I wanted to read a quote that I think is very powerful and is very necessary when I say, we need to include expungement automatically. The reason why is because we have quotes directly from people who helped set the policy for the war on drugs. So the Nixon campaign, domestic policy chief John Ehrlichman said, quote, the Nixon campaign in '68 and the White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black. By getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and the blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt these communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. So I read this in the record not just to kind of make a point, but for folks to understand this. The people who were setting these policies way back when, they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew they were criminalizing for the purpose of criminalizing, not because they actually cared about people, who might be abusing substances, might need help. They did not care. They just wanted to put folks in jail and maybe even profit off of it. So, that's why I hope that every single one of you fights and ensures that automatic expungement is included in this bill. Otherwise, it's direct betrayal of the communities that our representatives claim to serve. As I always say, I think your actions have consequences. So if you let these things go by and McKee gets his way, I think that's going to be very devastating for the community, and it'll manifest itself in the future if it doesn't manifest right away. Thank you so much. I hope you consider my testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you for your testimony, Simon. We appreciate that. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Next caller, please. Gregory?
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me in. Can you hear me all right?
I can, Gregory. This is Chairman Abney on House Finance. Look like you're testifying on 3 bills, and so we'll give you a little bit more extra time, but usually about 2 or 3 minutes. So you're on, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, absolutely wonderful job, Representative Abney. We love you as chair of this committee. You do such a heck of a job. I'm here tonight to talk to you about Sections 1 and Sections 5 of Bill 6122, and that's the proposed amendment of Article 11. And while I am generally in support of medical and recreational cannabis, I think it's important to talk to you tonight about how this article fails severely to bring about a just and equitable legalization. Governor Dan McKee has brought forth an article in his proposed budget, in Article 11, that says a lot of great things, but it really doesn't go far enough. Specifically in Section 1, where it talks about licensing and sales, we want to make sure in the coalitions that I run in that any legalization of the sale and production of marijuana not exclude anyone from upholding worker-owned weed. We want cooperatives to be a part of this. We want individuals, regular individuals, to be able to cultivate their own compassionate or recreational marijuana without fear of reprisal. And if they want to do that in a cooperative structure as opposed to one that is competitive or corporate in nature, they ought to be able to do that. This article does not include that yet. It doesn't go far enough. I want to move on to Section 5 that deals with adult use. And that's what we're all talking about when we talk about recreational pot, right? This is going to bring in a lot of tax money. And again, we want to make sure that adult use does not exclude anybody in our communities. Specifically, 2128.11.6 and 11.8. It seems to exclude people that live in apartment buildings and public housing dwellings. Now, what is that other than more war on the poor and a weaponization of such a great opportunity to raise revenues for the state against people who live in communities of color? This is just unacceptable. Also, we're barring people from smoking or vaping or whatever else in public. What in the heck is that? Who is going to determine that if not a member of law enforcement? And we all know how the racialization of drug laws, specifically around cannabis and pot, have, again, been unnecessarily harsh and punitive against people in the black community. This will not be another opportunity for racist application of laws. I urge you, everybody in my coalitions urge you, hold this article. Make sure that it passes the test. The last thing that I wanted to treat on is something that made me laugh the first time that I read it, but now it just fills me with rage. In Section 5, 21/28.11.13 says that there are penalties against people that don't extract using a specific number of special extractives. If I want to make if my grandpa wants to make pot brownies with butter, they are liable to prosecution or even jail. Now, what is going on with that? Did they just forget? There's propylene glycol, there's all kinds of other extractives in there, there's even ethanol, but not butter? What's going on? So you're telling me that if I want to, under Section 1 of the existing proposal, want to create a worker-owned weed cooperative, I'm going to be penalized. If under Section 5 of the proposal, I want to smoke in my apartment building, if I want to smoke in public housing, or if I want to make brownies with butter, I'm going to be excluded? This is just not right. We need just medical laws. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. Hear us all tonight, and we're going to be there for you when you need it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gregory. We love you too. Take care of yourself and stay safe.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Next caller. Is this Rick for the second time today?
I am, Mr. Chairman. How are you? I monopolized a lot of your time today. I apologize.
That's okay. Good. No, you're on House Finance, and looks like you're testifying tonight. So just simply reintroduce yourself and tell us, yes or no on the bill or the article. Thanks, Rick.
Sure. Yeah, I'll be very quick. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee for your time in public service. I know it's a late night, and I know it's only going to get busier over the next couple of weeks. My name is Rick McAuliffe. I am the lobbyist for the United Food and Commercial Workers. We are the largest private sector union in the state of Rhode Island. We have roughly 6,500 members. Most of them are Stop and Shop workers. We also have Shores Marketplace. We represent Eastside Marketplace. We represent cafeteria workers at Roger Williams University, and we represent a lot of other people in different trades in state. But one of the people that we do represent, one of the classes that we do represent, are cannabis workers. We have successfully organized the workers at Greenleaf in Portsmouth, and we have the cultivator in Warwick, which is called Perfect Union, used to be called Ocean State Cultivation Center. So I'm calling on behalf of them, of the workers who support this legislation, and want to recognize the work and effort Representative Slater has done throughout the years on this. Just quickly, as you go forward, I know there's been some amendments proposed. I know Reclaim Rhode Island and some others have put some amendments in that we support. First and foremost is labor peace. We believe there should be a labor peace in there, which basically says that both management and the workers have the right to make a decision whether to be part of a union or not part of a union. That's obviously up to them. We're not asking for any interference on either side. We also talked there would be no strikes with the labor peace agreement. They would work together and form hopefully a better partnership. It's being done or has been done in New York, New Jersey. It's being proposed in Connecticut. It's already law in California and Minnesota. So we'd ask that any legislation include a labor peace agreement. The Senate version will have that, and we're hopeful that the House would do as well. And then just lastly, as I mentioned, there's some amendments that we support. We support strongly the social and racial justice provisions in the bill that are being proposed. We would like to see a fund for small business owners. We hope that some of the money that is raised will go back in to allow small, low-interest loans for people in the area of the state that would like to be involved in the small business. And lastly, we support strongly the expungement measures that have been taken on individual legislation that's also included in here. So for all those reasons, we support the bill, and we ask that the labor piece, some of the social and racial provisions, as well as expungement, be included in that. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. We really appreciate that. Stay safe now.
You as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, next caller. Hi, Maggie.
Yes, hello.
Hello. This is Chairman Abney. You're on
yes,
House Finance.
Hi.
Great.
Thank you so much. Thank you. My name's Maggie Kane, and I live in South Kingstown, and I'm speaking specifically about House Bill 5452 in support of that bill, and just some remarks about Article 11 regarding cannabis legalization. I support Rep. Williams' bill because I do think that equity needs to be built in into the foundation of our cannabis legalization. I'm just going to point to a study the ACLU did in 2018. I live in South Kingstown, like I said, in Washington County. If you are a black person, you are 9 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana. And this was a study conducted just, 3 years ago. So, and, I encourage the committee, thank you for hearing me, to go check the study out because it does break down the different counties in Rhode Island. So I do believe this is proof that racial disparity, is still there in the even though it is decriminalized. There have been studies that have shown that even the basic possession ticket, disproportionately is given to more people that are black and brown. So it's still there. We need to make sure that we address that in the legalization, especially when it comes to the control in the legalization bill, finding new ways to criminalize cannabis use. We know will still be disproportionately affected certain communities, so we need to be careful of that. And I think that was referenced before, especially when it came to civil liberties regarding where you use and employment. So I would just encourage, especially the automatic expungement. That is a financial and emotional burden. We've heard the stories from people directly impacted. I think that they can carry that message better than I can. But to make a healthy cannabis industry, we need to make sure that we do not over-control it and create monopolies, and that includes making sure that revenue is directly put back into communities harmed by the war on drugs, and create great, good, well-paying, well-skilled jobs of the future, and all the things that people stated beautifully before. I'm going to save the time and just say, please remember these stories when you consider these bills. Thank you so much. And I'll answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Maggie, for your very concise comments.
Yep. Have a great night. Thank you so
You
much.
too.
Take care.
Next up, we have Tyler Brown. Tyler, are you with us? Tyler, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Good evening. You're on with House Finance. You can begin your testimony. Please make sure you state the bill you're testifying on.
Thank you. My name is Tyler Brown. I am testifying on Article 11. And I know that you've heard a lot of testimony about what myself and a lot of our constituents would like to see in the bill. That includes automatic expungement, just any record relief that isn't apparent in this bill. We want to see a social equity licensing program that is outside of the current definition of MBEs, and general worker protection provisions that allow safe and productive working environments where workers can benefit from this new industry. That includes the right to unionize and protections against retaliation for organizing, and also worker cooperatives, which we think should be a priority to distribute benefits and allow democratic participation in the marijuana industry. And I'm going to keep this brief. I testified in the Senate hearings on this particular proposal, and have heard the testimony and the justification for the governor's approach to marijuana legalization. And the thing that struck me, outside of all the things that it lacks, is that marijuana legalization in Rhode Island is a unique opportunity to do something meaningful in repairing the harms to working class and communities of color. And that opportunity does not fit neatly into existing structures and departments in the existing administration as much as the administration would like them to. I know a lot of the responses came back to, like, we have these systems in place. These departments have handled similar situations. We think that legalization can be handled by existing structures, and I do not feel that that is the case. I think we need a strong reimagination of how the state thinks about and responds to the needs of disenfranchised communities in Rhode Island. We need to get outside the bureaucratic comfort zone to recognize the impact
Tyler, if you
of the
could
war on
begin to
drugs
wrap up your comments, please.
and prioritize communities and individuals who have been directly impacted by marijuana prohibition. And I would strongly encourage the members of this committee and your colleagues in the House to be a beacon that guides the state to a path of social and economic equity, and that does not exist in the governor's proposal. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for testifying, Tyler. Next up, we have Eric Larson. Eric, are you with us?
Yeah.
Eric, if you don't mind, please turn down your TV or your computer. We have some feedback on this end.
Okay.
And you can begin your testimony. You have a few minutes. Please make sure you state the bill you're testifying on.
Okay. Hello, are you there?
You can begin whenever you're ready.
Oh, okay. Hello there. Thanks so much for having me this afternoon, and thanks for all your work on this important issue. My name is Eric Larson. I'm a associate professor of crime and justice studies at the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth. I'm a longtime Rhode Island resident, Providence and Pawtucket, and I'm happy that we are looking at the issue of legalizing marijuana, recreational marijuana. I think it's very important. And one thing that we kind of talk about in my crime and justice studies classes is kind of what happens if somebody does something wrong. You know, and in this case, I'm happy that the state of Rhode Island and we as Rhode Islanders are acknowledging that we did something wrong with the prohibition of marijuana. And so, to me, I think we have, you know, given that we're acknowledging we did something wrong, there's some steps we need to take to make things right. The burden is kind of on us. And so that's one reason I really support this proposal for automatic expungement of people's records. We're admitting that we did the wrong here, so we can make it right by automatically expunging those records and not burdening people who suffered the consequences of prohibition of marijuana and other drugs for doing that. And that has all kinds of things to do with racial justice and racism. I think Representative Williams mentioned how there's too many studies on some of this stuff, and we definitely don't need any more studies about the racism that the war on drugs and the enforcement of marijuana prohibition continued to create in Rhode Island, and so it's a moral imperative for I think for us to make things right. So I'd like to focus. My research is on labor, jobs, and incarceration. So I'm going to make my comments about that, and hopefully not take too much of your time here. But I think a couple ways. I mean, expunging people's records is one way that we can get local people into what I hope will be good local jobs in the recreational marijuana industry. People with criminal records are locked out of labor markets, especially if they're black. That's what studies show. Another, I think, concrete way we can make things right and make sure that we create good local jobs for Rhode Island with legalizing recreational marijuana is by allowing for and promoting the creation of worker-owned cooperative businesses to be the dispensaries. So what's happened in other states, as we've heard today, is that out-of-state corporations can get into the market, take control of local markets. They're often owned by wealthy people, white people who didn't suffer from the prohibition of marijuana in the first place. And so how can we create good local jobs? And some of the officials speaking today, I think, have expressed interest in having good local jobs here. So Worker-owned cooperatives would create a pathway for ownership for the people working. And secondly, I'd like to note that my recent research has been on formerly incarcerated people creating co-ops. So this is like a realistic thing that has happened, that is happening. Other countries like Italy, Puerto Rico, Sweden, they have created cooperatives. The state has subsidized cooperatives, acknowledging that people with criminal records can't get jobs. I've been doing research here in Rhode Island.
Eric, if you could begin to wind down your testimony, please.
Of course. This is my last point. I've been doing research in Rhode Island with formerly incarcerated people about forming worker-owned cooperatives, and they're super interested. We've been doing studies now for the last year. So I think it's a realistic thing, and I think it would be a really great contribution. Thanks so much.
Thank you for participating tonight.
Thank you.
I think the next caller is Emily Cotter. Emily, are you with us?
I am.
Good evening. You're live on House Finance. Please state the bill you're testifying on, and we'll give you a few minutes to share your thoughts.
Thank you. Good evening. Yes, I'm in support of all the bills, but I specifically wanted to just quickly comment on Article 11. But made me want to speak to social equity and community reinvestment taxes. So my name is Emily Cotter. I'm a lifelong Rhode Islander and advocate for drug policy and community and criminal justice reform in our state. Like I said, I just wanted to quickly comment on Article 11 and specifically its lack of substantial social equity provisions. In short, this proposal fails to reach where we need to be at in this stage of the game. We're no longer in a position where our state is going to be one of the first on the East Coast to set a new standard for cannabis equity. So at this point, we need to be looking at what other states have done to ensure that our social equity program is on par, if not an improvement on what's already been passed. I have submitted written testimony that outlines some of the financial aspects of the social equity provisions recently passed in New Jersey and New York, and I would encourage the members to review that in detail, as well as the challenges and outcomes of social equity programs in other recently legal states like Illinois, Michigan, and Massachusetts. So I was hoping to break down the specifics of each tax structure for you now, but for the sake of time, I just want to quickly say that for New Jersey and New York, respectively, 60% and 40% of the sales tax revenue is to be allocated for reinvestment into communities most impacted by the criminalization of cannabis. So by contrast, Article 11 makes no mention of plans for specific social equity funding or community reinvestment, and 60% of that cannabis tax revenue is destined for the general fund. So while the administration has said the proposal is anchored in principles of equity, frankly, I just don't see how that commitment is reflected in the substance of this plan, especially when you look at where the revenues will be directed. So without getting into the many other shortcomings of Article 11, I just want to encourage the members to look closely not only at where other states have succeeded when it comes to social equity, but equally to where states have struggled and where the best intentions have fallen short. So we have seen again and again that existing power dynamics can inhibit the creation and success of a truly equitable cannabis industry, namely when it comes to access to capital, market oligopolies, and lack of resources for small businesses to compete with multi-state operators. So these are all factors that we'll definitely be dealing with as we move forward in Rhode Island. So I think we should be thinking critically now about how we can mitigate these issues in the future if we're serious about creating an equitable industry in Rhode Island. So right now we're just in a place where we must think beyond our intentions of creating responsible and equitable cannabis legalization and focus more on what the impact of these policies are going to be. Are we creating a system that legalizes cannabis for middle and upper class Rhode Islanders and leaves low income and communities of color in the lurch? Right now, it seems that we are, and I have no doubt that the collateral damage of this proposal as is would be felt most by Rhode Islanders who are already marginalized and could further exacerbate the existing racial disparities in policing in our state. So if we don't implement social justice policies that are at least as good as New Jersey, New York, and other recently legal states, we will just end up perpetuating the systemic racism that has led to the criminalization of communities of color all across our nation. And this proposal without serious amendment is effectively racist in the impact that it would have on Rhode Islanders. And even as a strong legalization proponent, I'm not sure that I could support it as is. So I know these are complicated issues, and no state has yet to create the perfect cannabis legalization policy. So, but we need to do better than this. We need to do our due diligence, follow suit when it comes to states that have emphasized social equity provisions with more than just words. So thank you again for holding this important hearing today and for your thoughtful consideration as we navigate the road to legalization together.
Thank you for your comments and for pointing out that you've also submitted written testimony, which we'll be sure to review.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The next caller is Carol. Carol, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. You're live with House Finance. Please make sure you state the bill or article you're testifying on, and we'll give you a few minutes.
Thank you.
Go right ahead whenever you're ready.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, my name is Carol Formica. I am testifying tonight in opposition to Article 11 of the Governor's Budget Proposal, Fiscal Year 2022. I'm going to skip parts of my testimony because of the time constraint. I am testifying as a concerned citizen, as an educator, and as a former member of the State Legislative Study Commission, which was charged to study all the effects of marijuana legalization. I chose to participate in that study commission because I believe through public service, I could make a difference for the betterment of society and for the common good. But that opportunity was taken away when the study commission was terminated before my colleagues and I had the opportunity to address the issue regarding the societal impacts of legalization. One particular issue I would like to focus on tonight is addiction and substance use disorder. On March 15, 2021, an article published on Go Local Prov website stated that drug abuse in Rhode Island was on the rise, and according to the experts, numbers will increase if marijuana is legalized. Also quoted in the report is Robert Dulski, spokesperson for the Rhode Island Department of Administration. Dulski quantified the treatment costs for substance use disorder in Rhode Island during state fiscal year 2020 as over $80 million paid by Rhode Island, but added that the total was a very narrow window into treatment costs and that the data does not take into account all of the additional costs related to substance use disorder. As another frame of reference, a cost-benefit analysis conducted by the Centennial Institute of Colorado Christian University found that for every $1 gained in tax revenue, Coloradans spent approximately $4.50 to mitigate the effects of legalization in 2017. Again, for every $1, $4.50 was spent to mitigate the effects. Thomas Jefferson has been quoted as saying, "If we are to guard against ignorance and remain free, it is the responsibility of every American to be informed." So, with that said, my question is, how can any legislator vote on a bill or policy without having all the information on the issue they are voting upon? We need experts to testify on the evidence-based data and factual information regarding all the effects of legalization, not just the revenue side. There needs to be a study that is fair, that is comprehensive, and that will give all participants involved an equal opportunity to voice their views and concerns. Thank you for this opportunity to share my testimony.
Thank you so much for your testimony, Carol. We really appreciate that. We have about 8 more guests on the lines, and I want to thank everybody so far who are testifying on the line for your patience and for your keeping in Harris with the time constraints that we have. So we've got about 8 more guests to go. Thank you. Is this Alice? Alice, this is Chairman Abner. You're on House Finance. Are you there?
Yes, hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Alice. So just state your name, the bill that you're testifying on, article for or against, and speak for a couple of moments, please.
Hi, yeah, my name is Alice Hamblett. I'm from Barrington, Rhode Island, and I am testifying in support of House Bill 5452. So again, I'm testifying to express my support for House Bill 5452, specifically for its prioritization of social equity and marijuana legalization in Rhode Island. It is worth noting that this piece of legislation addresses the issue of equity in a manner far more rigorous than those which have been put forward by the Senate and the Governor. House Bill 5452 is correct in naming and attempting to address the negative collateral consequences that have been disproportionately suffered by Rhode Islanders of color as a result of the war on drugs and the criminalization of marijuana-related offenses. Speaking specifically to the disparate financial impacts of the criminalization of marijuana-related offenses, those saddled with past arrests and convictions are prevented from actively participating in our state's economy, resulting in deep inequities. As such, the provisions that this bill includes to create career opportunities in the legal marijuana industry specifically for and to provide substance support to people of color are essential. Such provisions reduce the racialized economic burden caused by the war on drugs and, as a result, increase community well-being. However, I would like to note that this bill can be improved in the service of equity by ensuring automatic expungement. Creating eligibility for expungement and waiving fees are not enough. The expungement process, which requires exorbitant time and personal engagement, places an undue burden on those who have already been harmed by the war on drugs. Automatic expungement ultimately shifts the burden away from those who have been punished for activities that soon selected Rhode Islanders will be able to profit off of and prosper from. Across the country, states are passing bills that forefront equity. Our state has an opportunity to learn from their successes and deficiencies and to be recognized for its boldness in caring for and uplifting its community members, in particular its community members of color. If legalization moves forward in Rhode Island without explicit parameters for equity, it will be just another instrument of structural racism, mass incarceration, and over-policing in our state. Finally, I urge you as legislators considering the legalization of marijuana in our state to listen thoughtfully to and to act upon the opinions and suggestions of those who have been harmed most acutely by its criminalization in the past. Those who have been directly impacted by the war on drugs, who can provide invaluable expertise based on their lived experiences, should play key roles in not only shaping the passage of this legislation, but also its implementation. We must legalize cannabis, but we must do so equitably. I reiterate my support for House Bill 5452. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alice, for your time and for your testimony. We really appreciate that. Thanks again. Okay, we're moving on to, I believe, is Dominique. Dominique, this is Chairman Abney on House Finance. Are you on the line, please?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. Just please restate your name, the bill that or article that you're testifying for or against, and you have a couple of minutes, sir.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time to hear my comments. My name is Dominic Passarella. I am the co-owner of a medical marijuana cultivation in Rhode Island. I am in favor of Article 11. I'm going to keep my comments very brief because I'm sure you have a lot of people testifying. The two main points I want to make: one, the Rhode Island Department of Business Regulation has already approved applications for more cultivation square footage than Rhode Island will need for both the medical and adult use market combined. In annual terms, that square footage can produce about 49,000 pounds of marijuana, and Rhode Island will likely only consume 36,500 pounds of marijuana. That's about 12,500 pounds more than is needed, more than 6 tons in excess. So I'm strongly against increasing the cultivation square footage. The other point I want to make is the DVR has some new talent there. They're very well versed in marijuana administration. And I really, really urge any representative to reach out to them. In particular, you have Matt Santa Croce, Erica Farelli, and Pam Toro. They're all very friendly. They're very knowledgeable. And I think it'd be great if you guys bounce questions off them. Find out why they do the things that they do. I think it'll make a lot more sense hearing from them. But I feel the more people talking about this at that level, the better, and the legislation will just come out a lot better. Thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate it.
And thank you, Dominique. We appreciate your testimony, sir. Okay. The next caller. Is this William?
Yes.
Well, this is our Chairman Abney, House Finance. You're on, sir. Just restate your name, the bill or article that you're testifying for or against, and you have a couple of moments, please.
Okay, thank you, sir. My name is William Cotton, co-founder of B&B Consulting and a medical marijuana patient. I'm in favor of H453 and any bills that have positive impact on social equity and expungement on prior medical marijuana infractions. I have a couple of issues with the bill, though, for Article 11. I'm in favor of it, but there's a couple of things that I have issues with. One is DBR being a part of it, fronting it, basically. And the reason behind that is our patients have been trying to get a hold of people at DBR. they've had issues with a couple of these compassion centers, and they don't feel that their voice is being heard. I feel a cannabis commission might be representing everybody, the patients, the cultivators, the dispensaries, and anybody that's involved in this program. I also love the social equity portion of Article 11, but the one thing that really concerns me is the taxes. Now, I hear a lot of stuff on how much people are making and this and that, but 60% of our patients are on fixed incomes, and they need money. I mean, cannabis costs a lot of money, and from raising the taxes from 11% to 14%, and then charging 20%, only 20% on recreational, I think that's disheartening to the patients. We were thinking that it was going to be reduction in taxes, maybe down to 7%, even 0%. So that's my concern. We're going to have probably a 30% loss in patients at B&B, which really comes down to the quality of a patient's chronic condition and trying to figure out how they're going to accept all these costs. I mean, you got the taxes, but you also have license fees from DOH. You have other fees that come with it, caregiver fees and or a purchaser's fee. It's just a lot of fees on the patient. If we can reduce those fees, it would help out the patient population a lot. That's all I have to say on Article 11, and I'll take any questions if you have them.
Well, thank you for your important testimony, sir. We really appreciate that. It always helps.
Well, thank you in the House Finance Committee in taking the time to consider my position on the issues that impact a large proportion of Rhode Island's population.
Absolutely. Take care and stay safe, sir.
You too, sir. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, do we have Daniel?
Yes. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can. This is Chairman Abner. You are on House Finance, and we can hear you loud and clear, sir. So if you would just restate your name, the position you take on either the article or the bill, and speak for a couple of moments, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all the representatives here for making the time for this important issue. My name is Daniel Denver, and I'm a co-chair of Reclaim RI, a grassroots organization that's fighting for progressive change across Rhode Island. And our position and the position of our coalition partners in Yes We Cannabis is that current proposals on the table right now do not go far enough in advancing racial and economic justice. Cannabis legalization is long overdue, but that does not mean that we should not do it right. Last summer's Black Lives Matter protest movement was historic. It made clear that racial and economic and social justice must be at the core of the laws that this legislature passes. And this is very, very true when it comes to marijuana legalization, because the drug war has destroyed the lives of so many people of color and so many poor people across the country, the world, and of course here in Rhode Island. Rhode Island right now is in the third wave of states legalizing recreational marijuana. The first wave, states like Colorado and Washington, did not give much thought to equity. It was brand new then. They did not think about it very much. The result was that big weed corporations took over the whole market. The next set of states, places like Illinois, made an effort to ensure equity, but they failed. Illinois currently does not have a single black marijuana retail store owner. We in Rhode Island are in the third wave. We follow New York, which this year passed what is now the most progressive recreational cannabis law in the country. Critically, New York requires that 50% of all retail licenses are reserved for social equity applicants, and they have a system in place to enforce that. New York is now the baseline for racially and economically just cannabis legalization. I cannot emphasize this enough. New York is the baseline, and Rhode Island cannot fall short of the bar set by New York. But we also want to and can do better than New York. Reclaim Rhode Island and our partners in Yes We Cannabis RI and at UFCW Local 328 and at Black Lives Matter Rhode Island PAC are asking you to make Rhode Island's law the most progressive cannabis legalization law in the country. We are asking you to make Rhode Island's law the most racially and economically just smoking law in the country. We need to see marijuana-related criminal records automatically expunged, but we also need to ensure that the legal marijuana market is a just one and that it is not just gobbled up by big weed corporations. We are proposing that half of all social equity licenses, 50% of all licenses go to social equity, and then half of those, 25% of all licenses, 50% of the social equity licenses, go to worker-owned cannabis cooperatives so that the social injustices of the drug war are healed by a social solutions that builds community wealth for people of color, working-class people, and formerly incarcerated people in Rhode Island. Please, I urge you to incorporate the proposal being put forward by grassroots racial and economic justice activists across the state and make Rhode Island a model of racially and economically just cannabis legalization that the entire country can look to and emulate. Cannabis legalization is not alone. It must be done with racial and economic justice, and Rhode Island has an incredible opportunity to set a new bar for how that's done. Thank you so much, and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Daniel. We appreciate your testimony. Take care of yourself.
You as well. Thank you.
Okay, to keep everyone informed, we have about 3 more guests to go. Is this Adina? Adina Burbaum?
Yes.
This is Chairman Abner. You are connected to House Finance. Just please reintroduce yourself to us and tell us which bill or article you're testifying for or against, and speak for a couple of moments, please.
Great. Thank you so much. I'd first like to thank you and the members of the Finance Committee for taking the time to listen to my testimony tonight. My name is Adina Birnbaum, and I am the CEO of Talaria. We're a Class A licensed cultivation business located in Providence. Talaria is a woman-owned business, and our company is dedicated to creating and providing clean cannabis while focusing on patient needs, education, and giving back to the communities we're part of. We currently have about 12 full-time employees, and no employee makes less than $15 an hour. Today, I would like to speak in support of Article 11. I believe that it is time for Rhode Island to pass marijuana legalization. We were one of the first states to pioneer sales of medical marijuana through dispensaries, and now is the time to allow for adult use sales as well. Every day on my way to work, I pass numerous billboards advertising adult use cannabis in Massachusetts. New York, Maine, and Vermont just legalized adult use, and it is very likely that Connecticut will legalize as well. Legalization is here. If Rhode Island fails to act in this session, we will simply be sending our dollars and jobs over our borders. In addition, legalizing adult use cannabis will result in an immediate and substantial increased tax revenue for Rhode Island. That, coupled with opioid usage and lowering incarceration rates for drug crimes, illustrates the legalization of adult use cannabis in Rhode Island. The first licensed, regular, compliant small business cultivators like me began operations in January 2017. There are now over 60 small business cultivators in the state, employing over 700 employees. The issuing of these small business cultivator licenses was done to ensure a supply of clean, safe cannabis for patients of Rhode Island, and to put the infrastructure in place for adult use cannabis, as adult use was seen as imminent by the administration. All right, the infrastructure is here now to implement adult use. We have the cultivators, a regulatory structure, and dispensaries already here. Article 11 recognizes this infrastructure and leverages it to provide a clear and straightforward roadmap for adult use. I'll submit this as written testimony, but I just want to make 2 things really clear. The first message is that we have the infrastructure necessary to support adult use legalization now. We have 450,000 square feet of cultivation already approved in this state. And really, the only thing we need to do is add a few more dispensaries, and Article 11 understands this. So this is personal for me, it's personal for my employees, it's my life and my livelihood, and I really appreciate your time and your consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adina. We appreciate your time and consideration. Take good care of yourself and your employees. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. Okay, we're down to, I believe, our last two guests. Is this Kimberly?
Oh, yeah, this is Kimberly.
Yes, how you doing? This is Chairman Abner. You're on House Finance. Please just reintroduce yourself to us and the article or the bill you're testifying for or against, and you have a couple of moments, please.
Okay, my name is Kimberly DeCoupe. So do I testify for both the bills that I signed up to now?
Yes, you do.
Okay, so yeah, just the first bill that I want to testify for, I don't have any position right now, but it's Article 11. And basically, I do think we need to legalize marijuana. It's been a long time coming. There's no reason why we shouldn't have legalized marijuana before. We're a very deep blue state, and that means that we should be amongst the most progressive states in the entire country, leading the country in fights like legalizing marijuana. So I don't think we need to wait anymore. We need to fast track this. But I do think the bill has huge issues in the sense that I don't really see a social equity licensing program in there. I don't see automatic expungement of records. The civil protections in the bill are pretty bad. From what I understand of the bill, it's, you would only be legally able to smoke if you own the home that you were smoking in. Even outside, you could have legal penalties for that. All those things have got to go, especially if we want to heal, the deep wound that criminalizing marijuana has caused. And we need to make sure that the marijuana industry is not controlled by corporations or very wealthy individuals. How is it fair that the poorest people have to suffer through policing and all these types of things? I mean, marijuana and these drugs have been the reason why, police have been in low-income neighborhoods looking for supposed drugs or whatever. So it doesn't make any sense that the lowest income people are going to, have suffered so much, and then wealthy folks who've never been a day in jail are the ones who are going to cash out once we legalize marijuana. That has got to go. And if we're going to legalize, then we need to do it in a just way. We need to make sure that there's economic justice and there's racial justice. Both of those things combined. You can't have either of them without both of them. And then lastly, I wanted to testify on behalf of the PIP bill, which is the Senate Bill 0584. This is also a program that we used to have all the way back in the day. I think 70s or 80s, we had the PIP program. And I cannot tell you how many people have huge amounts of debt from public services, electricity, water, all these types of things. People have thousands of dollars worth of debt in these types of things. A PIP program would help people. It would make sure that people don't rack up these huge debts that they literally can't pay, right? These are very low-income people.
Kimberly, this is Chairman Abner. You said that you were testifying on a Senate bill. We only take testimony on those bills that are before the House at this point. So you testified on the article itself, but we can't accept the testimony on a Senate bill in the House.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, no problem.
All right, thank you. Appreciate your testimony on the House issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I think, is this Catherine? Catherine? Hi, Catherine. This is Chairman Abney. Are you on yet, please?
Yes, Chairman Abney. Thank you for taking my call. My name's Catherine Hillary from Newport, and I stand in support of House Bill 5452 with Rep. Williams and the grassroots organizations of Yes We Cannabis and Reclaim Rhode Island. As we approach the legalization of marijuana, We are seeking social equity. This bill would automatically expunge prior cannabis records, use tax dollars from the sale of cannabis to invest in the communities that have been harmed by the war on drugs, the 1994 crime bill. It will prioritize the participation of the historically marginalized people in our communities with newly formed marijuana businesses and totally remove our drug laws, criminalization due to the use, sale, and consumption of marijuana. To paraphrase one of the leaders in the Yes We Cannabis movement, Miko Lincoln, there is a terrible irony and double standard going on in our state as we approach legalization. He applauds the state for moving towards legalization, but with headlines like justice and equity without reparations does not represent real progress. Legalization must include justice, equity, and reparations like this bill does. For nonviolent felons with criminal records concerning the sale, use, or consumption of marijuana, to be locked out of the burgeoning marijuana industry is not just an irony. It would be a glaring example of systemic racism continuing. We urge you to take to heart the pledge that Biden made last night in his presidential address to end systemic racism and realize that through passage of this bill, you will be modeling for the rest of the country what it looks like to show remorse for wrongdoing by the state and to embrace change that will lift up communities that have been harmed the most. Please pass this bill. Please don't put it to sleep. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Catherine. Stay safe. We'll
Thank
talk
you.
to you soon. Sure. Okay, we have one more guest we're trying to reach. We tried earlier, but it's going to voicemail. So I'll just put for the record, we tried to contact Kevin Hoffman, but we're not able to at this point in time. So if that person has some information that he would like to send in, we'll gladly receive it. I think that exhausts all of our guest list tonight, and I want to thank all of the members of the committee, whether you were here or whether you were virtual, and all of the people who stayed online to give us their opinions. It's all important to us. So thank you very much. Have a great night and stay safe. That should end the business of the Finance Committee tonight.